Imagine becoming a cop at 19, the youngest in New Jersey, then spending 34 years on the streets of Princeton and Las Vegas, surviving multiple shootouts, including a nightmare gunfight where your gun jammed feet from the suspect. Now imagine your own department fighting you for benefits after a stroke that nearly kills you. This is the unfiltered life of retired Lieutenant Randy Sutton, hero, survivor, and founder of the Wounded Blue. In this powerful interview, he reveals the raw truth behind the badge, the betrayal, the trauma, and how one anonymous donor is changing lives. This is his story. Can you introduce yourself for me, please?
Sure, my name is Randy Sutton. I'm a retired police lieutenant and the founder of the Wounded Blue.
Okay. Which police departments did you work for?
I worked for two different agencies.
Okay.
And they were on the opposite sides of the spectrum of law enforcement. My first department was in the small community of Princeton, New Jersey,
Okay.
which was my hometown.
Mm-hmm.
And I became a cop there at the ripe old age of 19.
Okay.
At the time, I was the youngest cop in the state of New Jersey. So they had just changed the age of majority from 21 to 18. So you could drink and you could vote, you could become a cop. But what you couldn't do, you couldn't buy ammunition because you had to be 21. So I'm getting ready to go into the New Jersey State Police Academy, one of the toughest academies in the country. And I had to go to my mom, would you buy my bullets for me?
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, and then so you ended up retiring from Las Vegas.
I retired from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department 34 years later.
Okay, so let's start off with Princeton. First of all, 19 years old, right? You start off 19 years old. Do you think you're old enough at 19?
Hell no. If I had known then what I know now, I was too young to be a cop.
Yeah.
You don't have the wisdom. You don't have the mindset that that lends itself to becoming a true law enforcement officer. Of course, I did it. I learned the hard way, but I look back on some of the decisions I made as a young cop,
Mm-hmm.
and I shudder. I shudder to think. But here's the interesting part. They did not intend to hire me when they did.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they didn't intend to hire me at all. But at that time, this is kind of a weird story, and fate has played a role in almost every part of my career, the ups and the downs. So when I was a cadet when I was in high school, and so here let's talk about the trajectory of my career.
Yeah. I wanted to get into that. I wanted to know how you got to law enforcement because I watched something else, and you wanted to be in law enforcement from the very beginning.
I did. I always knew I was going to be a cop.
Why do you think that was?
I think some people have an innate need to be a protector, and from the time I was in grade school, I was standing up to bullies for other people.
Where do you think that came from, though? Do you think it was your parents? Do you think your influence of your grandfather?
I do. I think that my family life and listening, I had a great role model. I had my father and my grandfather. My grandfather was a deputy sheriff at one point who had been shot in the line of duty by a poacher of all things. And he had this huge scar when the shotgun blast hit him in the stomach. I mean, it's amazing that he survived. But hearing his stories, and both my parents were court reporters, and so I grew up listening to stories of trials and law enforcement stuff. And my father was a special deputy as well. But I always, from the time I was a child, I knew what I was going to be. And then, of course, I grew up in the days of Adam 12.
Okay.
and Pete Malloy and Jim Reed were kind of my heroes, right, from Adam 12.
Yeah, and a lot of people, that's what they say. They said there was those police shows back in the day really made an influence on them.
The influence of television on law enforcement continues to this very day. And where do you but you know, when you grow up, you start thinking about, you know, the childhood fantasies sometimes drift away, right? I want to be a fireman. I want to be a policeman.
Yeah.
I want to be a cowboy. And most of the time, everybody becomes lawyers or doctors or Indian chiefs or whatever.
Yeah.
But it stuck with me. I always knew that I was going to be a cop.
Did your grandfather getting shot, did you have any trepidation of joining the police department? No?
Not at all.
Why do you think that?
Well, you never think it's going to happen to you.
Right.
You know, and I didn't think of any of the negativity involving law enforcement. Everything was, hey, I want to be a cop.
Okay.
I want to help people. And you know, everybody, you know, when you hear why cops become cops, everybody thinks it's corny. I want to play a role. I want to help people.
Yeah.
And it's true. Most cops it's interesting because most cops are very idealistic, at least when they start off.
Mm-hmm.
And they believe that they can make a difference. And that's part of the motivations. And it's true. It's not, you know, of course, remember, everybody that's a really good cop is an adrenaline junkie, right? They want the action. And they want to be in the mix. They want to be part of something. And just like military, you want to be part of something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
And law enforcement gives that ability. I mean, I don't believe there's any more noble profession, quite honestly, than that of the American peace officer. And so I'm so proud of the fact that I spent 34 years doing it and still involved to this day. It's all part, you know, my life has revolved around law enforcement my entire adult life and continues to this day.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the trajectory, because you start off as a police cadet. How old were you when you started there?
So here's how so now remember, I'm in Princeton, New Jersey. There's a 30-officer police department in one of the wealthiest communities in the United States. And I grew up not wealthy. My parents were middle class. And I went to Princeton High School. And here's where the trajectory begins, with me getting thrown out of high school again. So remember, I told you I was a protector.
Yeah.
So I got kicked out of school a lot for fighting. Every time it was for fighting. But it was never for fighting for myself. We had a lot of bullies. And a lot of the kids in that school were kind of pussies. And they didn't want to defend themselves. They would just let themselves be meekly bullied. Well, I didn't like that. I saw injustice. And you know, it's funny because even as a high school kid, fighting injustice was something innate within me. And one of my best friends was beaten up by a bunch of gangbangers in the school, hospitalized. And they knew, these gangbangers knew that I was hunting for them. And so they jumped me, about 5 of them. And who'd they throw out of school? So I'm in the principal's office, waiting for my mother to come pick me up again from getting tossed out of school for fighting. And the principal actually grudgingly liked me. He knew every time that I got in a fight, it was for the right reason. But of course there was no tolerance, you know. So he had a grudging respect for me. So one day, I'm in the principal's office, waiting for my mother to pick me up again. And the principal is talking on the phone. And I know from the conversation that he's talking to the chief of police. Because once a year, they would choose a cadet from the junior class. And when I say cadet, coffee boy, errand runner, intern, whatever name you want to, but they would choose a high school kid from the junior class. And I could tell from the conversation that that's the conversation he's having. I'm going, I'm pointing him, I'm jumping up and down. And he got this smile on his face and he said, "Chief, I think I got the perfect cadet for you."
So how old are you at that point?
17.
17.
17. I'm a junior.
Do you, when you talk about, you know, gangbangers jumping you, I find it interesting because it's a pretty wealthy area, but then you had kind of a lower socioeconomical part.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, we did.
And then, so how about you in terms of your background? I get the impression you know how to take care of yourself by that point. Are you doing any martial arts? What
Nope.
is it?
Nope, but I'm in the gym. I'm a strapping young man. No special skills.
Okay.
But a believer in justice.
Okay.
So anyway, I get the job as a cadet. And like I said, it's you're fetching coffee, you're running errands, and then one of my duties was to assist the desk officer, because back in those days there were no big dispatch centers, right?
Okay.
You called the police department, it was a desk man, is what they were called. And they were police officers, and they would take turns answering the phones and dispatching the cars. So one of my duties was to assist the desk man. And so I would answer the phones like a dispatcher, and then I would dispatch the cars and work alongside whoever the desk officer was. And one of those desk officers was a permanent desk officer because he had some medical issues. His name was Johnny. Johnny was this gruff old Navy vet, you know, from like Vietnam era. And he was the quintessential, okay, Sonny, get me this. But literally had the heart of gold, right? And so I worked with him a lot, because during my high school, that year in my high school, and then they kept me on my senior year. But here's what happened. So senior year, the principal calls me in and says, Randy, you need to take an extra course load, and you need to graduate early, because you're going to get thrown out of school permanently if you don't. And I said, okay. And so I took extra courses and graduated a half year early. I turned 18. Now, I have a high school graduate. I'm a high school graduate. I'm over the age of 18. And I know that I'm gonna go start taking police tests now. And the Princeton Police Department only hired one cop about every 5 years, because it was, you know, there was very few openings.
Yeah.
And it was an opening came up. Now I am now late 18, early 19 years of age. I'm going to college at night. I'm working full time, working as a security officer, and living my life, you know. And I'm taking police tests. And the Princeton Police Department has an opening, so I take the test. I know damn right well they're not going to hire me. I'm freaking 18 years old, or 19, whatever it was. And so, but I take the test anyway because I'm practicing, because eventually I'm going to get hired by somebody down, you know, a couple years down the road, I figure. And I take the police test, and they don't hire me, as I expect. They hire another guy. But they kind of like want to keep me interested. So they ranked me number 2 on the list. And I was very pleased at that, maybe number 2. I know they're not hiring me, but so I'm still continuing, even though I'm going to college at night and working full time. They continue to have me as a special officer, which means basically nothing. It means that they'll put me on a traffic post or something like that, but they keep me involved in the policing world, right? Mm-hmm. So fate played a role. And one day a hurricane rumbles through New Jersey. And it's a significant hurricane. And I know that they're going to need help. So I go to the police department, and they need help on the desk. And Johnny is on the desk, or Johnny is coming on at 3 o'clock. There's another desk officer there, 7 o'clock to 3. We worked 8-hour shifts. And so I'm working with the desk officer. It's busy as hell. Trees are coming down. There's, it's mayhem. It's a hurricane. And 3 o'clock, rolls around and no Johnny. And so and there was no cell phones in those days. So we call his house, and his wife said, yeah, he left for work. And so we figured, okay, probably a tree came down, he couldn't get in, he's probably working his way over. And get a little lull in the action. I run down to use the bathroom in the locker room, and I open the door, and Johnny is there. He came in and had a heart attack, and he's laying on the floor. So I yelled for help, and I was trained in first aid, and I gave him CPR, but I couldn't bring him back. And Johnny is laying dead on the floor, the muddy floor of our locker room. And all the cops are there, and we're stunned silence, waiting for the ambulance to come. And we haven't lost a cop, in recent memory.
Mm-hmm.
And there's our friend laying on the floor. And we're helpless. We couldn't do anything. And one of the sergeants leans down to me and says, it's a hell of a way to become a cop. And that's how I became a cop at 19.
Okay, Randy, we're gonna hit on this later on, because I definitely want to talk with you about this, because there's been some stuff that's happened in the course of your career. But as a 19-year-old, essentially a friend, seeing him die, I'm assuming you haven't seen much of that at that point.
No.
How do you deal with that?
It was devastating. It was devastating. I mean, I had not dealt with death in that context. Now, I had dealt with death because I was a member of the rescue squad at 16. That's where I began my service to the community, was as a member of the Princeton First Aid and Rescue Squad. And we were pretty professional. We were volunteers, but we were highly trained. We slept there, so we were on call during the evenings. And I saw death, even as a young man.
Okay.
Death, violent death, from traffic accidents, from, all kinds of. So I wasn't a stranger to death, but I was a stranger to that kind of death.
But it was 76, Randy, and I got to assume at that point it's the stuff your feelings down and don't talk about it.
Oh, very much so.
So I'm assuming the police department didn't give you any counseling, nothing happened.
There was no such thing as counseling back then. There was no such thing as counseling. And suddenly I am thrust into, we're swearing you in, and I'm headed to the New Jersey State Police Academy.
Wow, so at 19 years old and 76, when you're at the academy, what kind of academy is it? Militaristic?
Completely militaristic, on a military base, and a residential academy. So for 3 months, you're on base, and it is you're at attention, you're marching, you're running, you're standing guard at night. It is full military.
Interesting. So how do you deal with it as essentially a young adult?
So I think I learned more in the barracks at night than I did in the classroom during the day. Let me put it that way, because there were cops there from all over the state of New Jersey. And some of these guys are 25, some of these are 30, some of these guys are 40 years old. And they're from all over the state, including Newark, you know what I mean, North Jersey, yeah? And here I am, you talk about green. I'm green as green could be. And I'm absorbing it all. And and in the academy, it's competitive. If you don't cut the mustard, you're done. Some agencies they'll bend over backwards to keep you. Not New Jersey State Police Academy. You don't handle it academically, you're done. You don't handle it physically, you're done. You don't handle it because your attitude, you're done. So it was a huge maturing experience for me to go through that process. And I was very proud to graduate from the 158th class of the New Jersey State Police Academy in 1977.
Did any of the guys take you under their wing? Hey, we got to help this young kid, or conversely, did anybody try and drum you out?
No, it was every man for himself, though.
Okay.
But I did have some mentors in there.
Okay.
Not that played a major significant role, but I was dealt with kindly. You know, they made a lot of fun of me because I was the kid, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, for
Here's
sure.
this 19-year-old.
Yeah.
What are you doing here?
Yeah.
Boy. You know.
Okay, so how long does the academy last for you then?
Academy was 3 months.
3 months.
3 months of residential academy.
Okay, so when you get out, tell me how your FTO program works. Are you in a one-man car, two-man car?
There was no FTO program.
Okay.
You rode with a senior officer until they felt you were ready to go out on your own.
Which was how long for you?
It was, I'm going to say, probably 3 months, 4 months. And it's then you're on your own, kid.
Okay, I got a whole bunch of questions then. First of all, I always ask this. How long do you think it was before you felt comfortable in what you were doing?
Well, I'm going to say that at that time, I didn't know what I didn't know. Right? But I am now a police officer in my hometown.
Right.
Where I am running into all the kids I was in high school with who are doing the shit that they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and their parents who are doing the shit that they're doing. And at that time in my life, I had to come to terms with, what am I going to do here? Am I going to be a law enforcement officer, or am I going to be the guy that I'm going to let my buddies off? And I decided I'm going to be a cop. And I was not a very popular guy in my hometown, because I was writing tickets to guys that I was friendly with.
Okay, so some questions for you on that. So first of all, Princeton, so you're in a college town, right?
Yeah.
Fair to say?
Yeah.
How is it rolling around with college students as a 19-year-old? Did they ever go, kiss my ass, I am not listening to you. You're the same age I am.
Yep. They did listen. But but I was, like I said, this became a huge learning curve.
Yeah.
Because I'm answering domestic disputes. Well, I've never even had a girlfriend.
And,
right?
that was my other question. How, as a 19-year-old, are you rolling into a domestic abuse situation, domestic violence situation, and you're dealing with like 40-year-olds? Not only
that, I'm dealing with people who I know. I'm dealing with parents of kids I went to school with. It was a tough situation. I went through a lot of personal conflict here. But I had to make a determination to myself. It would be unfair of me, and fairness is something I'm a huge believer in. It would be unfair of me to write Joe Blow a ticket, who I don't know, and not Joe Blow here, who I do know, because we were in school together. And it caused a lot of interpersonal issues.
Yeah.
But here's the other part of this. So, I'm now 20 years old, and everything was black and white, man. Everything was black and white. Everybody got a ticket. Everybody went to jail. There was no black and white. There was no color there. There was nothing in between. And that's the way I conducted my police life for a couple of years. And then I was so fortunate that I went to work for a sergeant who I had deep, abiding respect for. I had worked with him. When I was a cadet, everybody treated me like, hey, boy, get me coffee. Make sure that you put right amount of sugar and cream in it, right? But not this guy. This guy, he was a detective, and he treated me like a normal human being. We would talk, we would be friendly. He treated me like an adult, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I understood that this is a guy that's a leader. He did. And so when I became a cop, he was promoted to sergeant. And a couple of years into my career, I went to work for him. And this guy he had a high school diploma like me. He didn't have any college. But he had an innate leadership ability. The guy had guts. I saw him face down alone, like a group of about 25 gangbangers. I rode in as a backup, and the guy that was the leader was a badass. He was huge, and he was a known ass kicker. And I get there, and Tommy is his name, is facing this whole group of assholes, right? And he faced him down. This guy didn't make a move on him. Not because he couldn't have taken him physically, but because he knew that there was going to be a terrible price to be paid if he did. And I watched this, and I was scared to death because I'm in the midst of it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm watching this sergeant basically quelled the situation because of his ability to communicate. And I learned a lot from this man. And I had, like I said, deep and abiding respect for him. So one night, we're working graveyard shift. We work 11 to 7 for graveyard shift. And at the end of the shift, he says, Randy, well, let's go to breakfast. And I said, yeah, sure. So we go to a New Jersey diner, and I'm recounting my events of the night. Yeah, I told that asshole, right? And he's nodding, he's smiling, yeah, agreeing with me. And then at the end of my recounting of my nightly encounters, he says, Randy, I got to tell you, you really are a good cop. I go, yeah? He says, you are. He says, you work your ass off. You have a tremendous knowledge of search and seizure, arrest powers. You're the highest performing police officer on the police department in terms of your tickets and your arrests. He said, but let me ask you a question. Do you know the difference between being a good cop and being a great cop? And I got to tell you, he stumped me on that one. And I said, no. And he said, and he got a smile on his face. And he says, it's one word. It's compassion. And in that moment, my entire law enforcement philosophy changed. It was like literally he switched the light bulb on. And he didn't beat me over the head with it. He led me with that simple phrase, and the way that he spoke to me, he let me find out for myself what I was lacking. And it changed the way I was a cop. And then it changed the way I was a police leader. And then I instilled that philosophical belief in cops that I trained for 30 years. That's what leadership is. And it changed the way I was a cop. He's my friend to this day. He wound up becoming the chief of police.
Prior to this conversation you had with him, fair to say, and I don't know whether this was after or well, certainly before. I don't know if this was after this incident, but fair to say that you kind of rubbed some of the old guys the wrong way because you just wanted, typical gung-ho, I just want to do my job, but
Yeah.
essentially you were making everybody look bad.
100%. 100%. And here's the way we dealt with that shit back then. So, I mean, I was by far the youngest guy on my squad.
Sure.
And we had a sergeant and like 5 guys. And we had some pretty crusty folks and some pretty lazy guys. And I was literally outperforming. I led the department in arrests and tickets.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way they gauged your productivity back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made them look bad, you're right. And so it created some disharmony. Let me put it that way. So managing your peers is something that cops do very well. So the way they decided to manage me was not show up to help me. And one night, I was in a pursuit, chased a suspect. There was a rich guy, chased him into a mansion, literally. And then he jumped out of the car and he ran into the house. I kicked the door, I ran in, and I'm calling for help. And I had a knockdown, drag-out fight with this guy. It looked like an Errol Flynn movie. I'm running, we're punching each other, running up the stairs, running down the stairs, falling down. I mean, my uniform's all torn up, I'm beat up, and finally get him handcuffed. My backup never shows up. I drag him up to the station. And there's my entire squad waiting for me, like this. Drag this guy into a cell, and I'm pissed. So, a couple days go by. And the ringleader, there's always one guy that's the mouthpiece, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So a couple days go by, and he gets dispatched on a call, and he wants to shrug it off, and he says, "Have Sutton take it." So I got on the radio. I said, "Since Officer so and so obviously can't do it, I'll take the call." Well, that was literally throwing the gauntlet down. And he says, "Meet me at such and such a place." It was on the edge of town. Big group of trees. And the whole squad shows up because this is showdown time. And it was like being in grade school again. And I beat his ass.
How old are you when this happened?
22.
God.
And he's probably 40. And he got into me. He pushed me, and that was it. I was over him like a swirling dervish. And I beat his ass.
And then did he get better?
It was like night and day. I was now accepted.
But Randy, why weren't you accepted beforehand? Beforehand, like for example, you're beating that dude's ass in the mansion and bringing him in.
Stupidity. There's no excuse for it. It was juvenile. It was juvenile.
Hmm.
And you know, I can't say that I'm proud of the way my brethren acted. I'm not.
Right.
I thought it was shitty.
Right.
But this was policing back in the 70s.
Huh.
Right?
Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
And after that, we were best friends.
Interesting.
We were best friends ever since.
Did you? Wow. I mean, I'm a little taken aback on that. Okay, so when you're 22, you start off at 19, you're 22, you're floating along. I know you became detective at some point, but was there a goal when you started with Princeton? I'm assuming at some point you thought maybe you were going to be here forever, and
Yeah.
in that mindset, what did you want to do?
Yeah, I wanted to climb the ladder
Okay.
and work my way up. Now, you know, there wasn't many promotions. There wasn't much movement in a 30-officer police department.
But
the chief had been the chief for 30 years.
So my main question was, did you have a specific thing? Like, for example, did you want to be a homicide detective?
We didn't have homicide detectives.
Okay, but was there?
We had the way the structure worked. There was patrolman, and that was the rank, patrolman, detective,
Okay.
sergeant, lieutenant, captain, chief.
Okay.
That was it.
But you became a detective.
I did 6 years as a patrol officer,
Okay.
and then 4 years as a detective.
But why go to detectives? Why not stay being a?
Because I like to grow,
Okay.
and I liked investigative work,
Okay.
and I was very good at it. I'm investigating a lot of property crimes and college kid bullshit, that kind of stuff, right? There was rarely any major crime, and when there was, I got to investigate it.
Yeah.
And I loved investigative work. It's challenging. I worked some pretty good cases. I had some significant cases along the way, and but I was very aggressive. Even though I had tempered myself, and the chief of police, who I knew very, very well, was as old school gets. Like I said, he'd been the chief for 30 years. And while he accepted me, he didn't like my methods. He wanted no complaints. He wanted no waves. And you arrest the wrong guy in Princeton,
Yeah.
and they call the chief.
Right.
Because they've known him for 40 years.
Right.
So I arrested some of his friends. Didn't put me in the best light with him. So he tried to let's say temper me in some ways that I found disagreeable.
Is that what ultimately led you to go to?
That was part of it. That was part of it. So the straw that broke the camel's back was there was sergeant opening, and I tested for sergeant. And the way that it worked, you took a written test, and you took an oral board, and that's how they chose you as that's where they came up with the ranking. Well, I was first on the written test. I was first on the oral board. So you'd think you're going to be a sergeant. Well, because he didn't want me to be a sergeant, he entered another step in the process where he could play a role. And so I went from being number 1 to being number 3, and they were going to bring on 2 sergeants. So at that point I decided, nah. But I was thinking of leaving anyway.
Okay.
Because I was bored.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was bored being a small town cop. And so I was constantly perusing. Now, there were no computers then. So you would look at the police newsletters to see who's recruiting. And I was always looking at the newsletter. I'm going, shit, maybe I could go there, maybe I could do this. But I'm in my hometown. I'm at the top of my pay scale. I'm almost halfway to retirement. My family is there. So there were a lot of reasons to stay. But I'm leaving. I've decided I'm going. So I see a recruitment ad for a large, I'm not going to mention the name of the department for reasons that will become apparent, a large Southern Florida agency. And they're hiring. So I take a week's vacation, I go down there. I take the written test, I pass it. Take the physical agility test, I pass it. So now that my ranking is high enough that they know they're going to hire me unless something weird comes up. I took the oral board too, and I passed that. So now, unless something comes up in my background, they're going to offer me a job. And this is all taking place in a week. And the recruiter says, "Hey, Randy, listen, I know there's going to be an offer. Would you like to do a couple ride-alongs with us? And I said, yeah, hell yeah, absolutely. So they assigned me a guy that had been a cop in New Jersey and is now working for them, thinking we're going to do the New Jersey mind meld, we're both going to get our chains out and go, hey, how you doing, And he picks me up at my hotel, and we go off graveyard shift. And we're not out on the shift 2 hours when we get involved in a hellacious pursuit. We're the secondary unit in this pursuit, and we're pursuing a motorcyclist. And this is in the days when the pursuit policy was chase him till you get him. And we're chasing this guy all over the place. And I'm going, hell yeah, baby. This is exactly what I'm looking for, right? Action. And we wind up in an industrial area. And we're doing like 80, 90 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour. And the motorcyclist doesn't make the turn that he thinks he's going to make, loses control of the motorcycle, and slams into the side of a warehouse at about 80 miles an hour. And he was literally a red spot on the wall. He was dead. The bike disintegrated, and it looked like somebody threw bushels of money up in the air. Because this is in the 80s now. This is 1985-ish.
Yeah, Southern Florida.
Southern Florida.
Cocaine wars, all that.
And this guy's a drug courier. And it was surreal. There's this crumpled, mangled body, a motorcycle that's smoking, and money raining down from the heavens. And I'm thinking, oh man, I get to see how the big boys do this. I'm going to get to see the investigative work, the detectives are coming, this and that. And we are not on that scene a minute and a half when my partner says, come on, let's go. I said, what do you mean? He says, we don't need to be here. Come on, let's go. I said, well, aren't detectives coming out? I mean, we're witnesses to a fatal. Yeah, if they want us, they'll call us. The primary can handle it. Come on, let's go. He couldn't wait to get me away from that scene. And being the trained investigator that I am, and I don't know this for a fact, but I'm willing to bet that all that money that was laying around there didn't make it into the impound lot.
Wow.
And that was the first time I had seen something of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I realized that what I now call the ethical environment of that agency was not going to be consistent with mine. And what I saw over the next few days continued in that vein. They kicked everybody's ass, whether they needed it or not. And so I made the decision. They offered me the job, and I said, no thanks. And I went back to my little cocoon in Princeton, and I was telling that story with a little more embellishment from the rest of the time I was there, and at a Delaware Valley Detectives Association meeting, which was cops from all over the valley in New Jersey. And 2 FBI agents came up to me afterwards, and they said, hey, if you're looking for a really good agency that's clean and a lot of action, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. And generally speaking, you don't hear such glowing remarks, especially from feds.
Yeah.
And so I came out here and I did my homework, I did my due diligence, and was offered the job, and had to go through the academy all over again, and begin my career all over again. Now I'm one of the older guys in the academy.
Okay, before we get there, let me ask you, I'm going to go back and ask you a couple questions. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about corruption a little bit. Why do you think you have the moral compass? I mean, obviously you have the sheepdog mentality from your very young age, but you have a moral compass where it's like, I would never even consider stealing this money. Where do you think that comes from? I mean, do you think
it comes from your upbringing? It comes from your upbringing, and it comes from developing your own sense of self.
Okay, I understand it from your standpoint, but can you put yourself in the other guy's shoes? Do you think they didn't have a good upbringing, and or do you think it's a culture? Do you think it's a culture that's developed of corruption?
Yes, I do believe that there is a culture of corruption.
Okay.
And it was 6 months later, I read a headline where the chief of police of that agency was let out in handcuffs for corruption. And I just, I even spoke to my friends. I said, you see, if the top of the food chain is going to conduct themselves that way, it's going to drip all the way down through the agency.
Interesting.
And so, and I'm a student of law enforcement. You know, I study history. Later in my career, I wrote an article called Policing with Honor, surviving your career ethically as well as physically and emotionally. And it struck a chord in a lot of different police agencies. And I started getting at this point, I was a sergeant in charge of advanced training for Metro.
Okay.
And I wrote this article, and it was widely published.
Okay.
And agencies started calling me, hey, do you present on this? So I wound up doing an 8-hour presentation called Policing with Honor, and I trained thousands of cops across the country.
Wow.
And so as a result of that, I studied corruption. I studied misconduct. I mean, I needed to know what I was talking about and understand from my own perspective, how does this begin? How does corruption on that level begin? And it's fascinating. I mean, we could talk for hours about that.
Well, give me the condensed version. Did you come up with a clue of or an idea of how that starts?
Yeah, it starts with little things. It never starts with the big thing. It never starts with stealing 2 kilos of cocaine on a drug deal. It starts off with minor stuff and you get away with it. And then it escalates. Minor misconduct can become, well, I got away with that. It's like, it's really not different from childhood, where you get away with this, so you do that.
Yeah.
If you don't have strict parents, right?
So
in case studies, you can almost always, I'll give you an example. This is a perfect example. One of the worst corruption scandals in the LA Sheriff's Department occurred in the 80s. And I have secondhand knowledge of this because one of the FBI agents who was working this case was a very close friend of mine, and we had long talks about it later on down the road. So they had their top tier narcotics squad was called the Majors, the Major Narcotics Squad. And these were the big boys, man. These were the highest echelon of narcotics investigators in the LA Sheriff's Department, which is one of the largest departments in the nation. I mean, they were on television. They were, you would spend your career trying to get into the majors. Everybody had at least 15 years on the job before they could even get into it. Every single one of those guys was arrested on the Major Narcotics Squad. Everybody, all the sergeants, all the detectives, and it was one of the most horrendous situations in LA Sheriff's history. How did it happen? Well, it began with, and this will shock you, a woman scorned. The wife of one of the detectives who had stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars of drug money was getting divorced, and she went to go see the sheriff. And she said, I want you to know that these guys are stealing. Now, the sheriff could have gone 2 ways on this. He could have shoved it down and covered it up.
Yep.
He could have had his own people investigate it and do whatever was going to happen, handle it internally. Or he could have done what he did, and that was contact the FBI. and said, we can't handle this. This is not, we have to have a different agency handle it.
Mm.
And that became a major investigation by the FBI.
Wow.
And they wind up taking them all off. Now here's how sad this story is. And the FBI agent that was telling me this story literally was visibly upset about his role in this investigation because he put a bunch of cops in prison. And he said, here's how it began. There was a culture within that squad. And we're talking like 5 sergeants and 6 detectives on each squad. And these guys are handling multi-million-dollar drug busts, and at that time, money seizures. Money seizures were huge back in the 80s, right? Because they couldn't prove that money was, and the cities would take it and gobble it up, and you get more kudos for a money seizure than 100 kilos, right?
Sure, yeah.
Because that was in the coffers now. So they really went after the money seizures. Well, it started off with Polaroid film. At that time they would take pictures of the seizures, and they ran out of Polaroid film. So the sergeant took $100 out of the drug money that they just seized and told his detective, why should we pay for it? Let the dope dealer pay for it. Go get some film. And then that became normal. They would take money from the drug dealers to go purchase items that they needed for the stuff. They figured, and they told themselves it was okay.
Yeah. And
that began the process of corruption. Once you can start saying in your mind, well, if I take money for this, it's okay. Then it was, hey, you know what? We've been working for 12 hours. We need to get some pizzas. Why should we pay for it? Let the assholes pay for it.
Right.
And that's how the corruption began.
Mm.
Now that it's ingrained, right, in the culture of the majors. And here's how they corrupted the new guys. You would want to get into the majors for 15 years. Finally, you get your shot and you get brought up to the majors. You go on your first big bust. C is $1 million. Next day you come in, you open up your desk and there's $10,000 sitting there. Hey, what the hell is this? That's a bonus. Now, you're that cop.
Right.
You got to make a decision.
Yeah, because you worked your entire career to get to the majors.
And what's going to happen if you turn it in?
Right. You're out.
You're out.
Yeah.
You're the rat. You're the snitch.
Right.
You're never to be trusted.
Right.
Many of these guys never spent a dime of the money. They put it in a suitcase somewhere, never to be spent. But they didn't have the guts to say no.
Mm.
And as a result, and this is what upset my friend. He said, I put people in prison. They didn't want to spend this money. They were forced into this, and they didn't have the guts to say no. And that's how corruption is so deceptive. It's so malevolent. And that's why Policing with Honor, to me, presenting on that topic, I believe to save careers.
Yeah. Huh. Before we get to Las Vegas, I want you to tell me the lesson learned for the robbery of the old lady that you came across, where you thought it was just some random normal alarm because you thought, oh, it's just so-and-so.
Yeah. So, Princeton. the world of complacency. So let's go to the culture of Princeton for a moment. The chief, we were armed with 6 shooters. We weren't allowed to have nightsticks. They had to be in the car because the chief didn't think that, he didn't like the look of it because it might offend people. We had shotguns, but they had to be locked in the trunk because he didn't want people seeing the shotgun. And if you deployed that shotgun, I'll give you an example. We had a bank robbery alarm. And we handled alarm calls like it was Mayberry, right? And we had a bank alarm, and I decided I'm not walking into that bank. So I took the shotgun out and I called into the bank. Well, somebody complained to the chief that they saw Randy Sutton had a shotgun. And I had called into the office, and he jumps all over my shit. And he had a kind of a lisp. Randy Sutton, this is the way he spoke. Randy Sutton, you had a fucking shotgun? Why do you think you needed a shotgun? I mean, and I had to defend myself, right? Why I thought so. Okay, so that sets the tone, for you, if you will, right?
Sure.
So we had a nice little urban shopping area in Princeton, and I remember that town's been there since the 1600s, and they had a cool little downtown shopping area, and we had a foot post there, so we walked a beat. We would take turns walking the beat. And I knew everybody in town. I knew every merchant. I knew every shopkeeper. You know, it is kind of like Mayberry, right? And I mean, so there was a jewelry store half a block down from a foot post. And the woman who owned it, I knew her very well. I dated her daughter, for God's sake. And she was very absent-minded. And she would set her alarm off not infrequently. So one day, it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, beautiful sunny day, and I get a dispatch, hey, alarm at the jewelry store. And I go, okay, I'll handle it. And I assume that this is going to be exactly like every other alarm call there. So I saunter on down, and I open the door, and I see a black guy taping her mouth and tying her up. And as soon as I realized, holy shit, this is really a robbery, I drew my gun, and as I did that, I felt the barrel of a pistol at the back of my neck. This guy's partner had me, but I had him. So we are literally, this is the Mexican standoff, right? He's got a gun in the back of my head. I've got him in my sights, and he's only 5 feet away from me. I know I'm going to get him. And this punk tells me to drop my gun. I'm not dropping my gun. And I say, you may get me, but I'm killing him. Luckily, he was the boss. And he told his partner to drop his gun. You talk about a wake-up call?
Yeah, you probably never handle another call like that. The same again.
After that is when I called the bank. Right? Because I'm not doing that shit again.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that was a major wake-up call for me.
Did you, okay, he told his partner to drop his gun. Did you arrest them both?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Let's talk about your transition then. I have some questions prior to you starting with, well, not starting, but I want to ask you a couple things. What was the difference between East Coast policing and West Coast policing?
It was a complete difference.
Okay, in what way?
Okay, here's how.
Okay.
So, I'm in Princeton. If I put my hands on somebody, there was going to be an investigation into my conduct. Give you an example. just before I made detective. In fact, actually, just before I made detective, I make a vehicle stop on a drunk driver. It's the middle of the day. This guy is huge. He's a professional hockey player. He's a big old boy, and he's shit-faced. And so I give him the field sobriety test. He's drunk as could be. And it's a main road that I'm making this car stop on. And I don't have any backup. It's just me and him. And so I say, you're under arrest. And at first he's compliant. Now I have him on the passenger side of the car. And I put him in handcuffs, and I open the back door to put him in the car, and he knees me right in the balls. And he gets me good. I'm not expecting it. Because I'm not savvy enough. Complacency, once again. He gets me good. And as he knees me, I haul off and boom, and I smash him in the face as hard as I could. And he goes down. At the moment that's happening, a newspaper reporter is driving by. They didn't see him knee me. They just saw me punch this handcuffed prisoner. Well, this became like the biggest news in Princeton. Randy Sutton beating a handcuffed prisoner. They treated me like I was a criminal. Until he sobered up and said, hey, you know what? I need to apologize to that cop. I was out of line. But even the fact that I used, in all reality, a minor amount of force in a situation like this, they were ready to put me out to pasture. Now, I get to Vegas. I get to Vegas. Remember, I know search and seizure. I'm an experienced cop, but I'm not a city cop. I go through the academy here, and they're a whole lot more attuned to officer safety here than any police department I've ever seen. They teach you how to survive, and they teach you to be a warrior. And one of the things they taught in the academy was, in your probable cause for making vehicle stops and searches and stuff, was JDLR. And I'm going, JDLR? What's that? Just don't look right. And I'm going to love working here. Right?
Yeah.
I'm going to love working here. So that's in the academy. Now, use of force. I get out of the academy. It's my first week in field training. Now, here, this is a very disciplined field training program. It's 6 months. You work with a different field training officer every single month. You are evaluated every single day on every aspect of your conduct, from your use of force, your officer safety, your search and seizure, everything. And I mean, if you don't toe the line, you're out. Even though they spent all that money on training you in the academy, field training, they'll knock your ass out. They don't think you can cut it. So the first couple of weeks of field training, you're just supposed to observe, not do anything. See how the big boys do it, right? Now, but I'm an experienced cop, so you got to really play the game. Because my field training officer had less years on the job than I did, of course. But he was a Vegas cop. So the first, we make a vehicle or make a stop on like 4 gangbangers in an area of town that really doesn't exist anymore, but was completely overrun with Crips and Bloods, and there was battle all the time. So we stop a bunch of Crips, and I'm just observing, because that's what I'm supposed to do. And back in that day, we just, come around the car, put your hands on the hood. And my FTO, my field training officer, is doing the interviews. Who are you? Show me your ID, that kind of thing. And we'll run them, see if anybody's wanted, that kind of thing. Well, one of the guys spits on the ground near my FTO's foot. He did it one time. He's continuing, and then he did it a second time. And my FTO went, whack! He slapped him right upside the head. And I'm going, holy shit. We're gonna get into it now. And the guy took the slap, put his hands back on the hood, and that was that. And we continued like nothing ever happened. And I'm like, is this a test? Right? Is there a camera? And we get done with the stop, he lets him go, and off we go. Now, I really think that this may be a setup for me. And so I say, sir, I have a little issue with what took place back there. And he got a smile on his face. He said, so you mean why I slapped the shit out of him? And I said, yeah. And he says, I know you were a cop back east. He says, so here's the reality. He was showing me disrespect. First time, you let him get away with it. Second time, the next thing that was going to happen, we were going to be in a fight with those 4 guys. So you put a stop to it right then and there. And I went, you're not in Kansas anymore, Toto.
Okay. I got some questions then. Did you, based on that story, obviously use of force is a little bit, I don't want to say more lenient, whatever else. Did you find that the East Coast versus the West Coast, did you find one more professional than the other? Or it was just a different way of policing?
I found realism, reality. I survived my career in New Jersey because I was lucky. I wasn't attuned to survival. Here I was attuned to survival, and let me illustrate that with another story.
Okay.
So I get through field training, and now it's my first. Now you're assigned to now you're a cop, right? You're still on probation, but you're a real cop now. I get assigned to graveyard shift because that's where all the rookies go, and I'm in the same area of town. Crips and Bloods fighting it out all the time. I'm I don't know, 2 months into my solo, I'm now a real cop. And we rode 2-man cars at that time in that particular area of town. And we get in a pursuit with a stolen vehicle. And we're chasing this car, they crash, they run, I go after the driver, my partner goes after the passenger, and I'm running after this guy. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. We're in a housing project. And I'm pretty fast back in those days. And so he runs around the corner of the building. I run around the corner of the building. And as I come around the corner, he's waiting for me. He's going to ambush my ass. Mm. And I instantaneously, I had my gun in my hand already, and I fired. And the bullet grazed his ear and hit the wall behind him, and a piece of stucco hit him in the head. And he thought he was shot. And he couldn't drop that gun fast enough. Mm. Get there, cuff him up, and I find out he's 15 years old. And he's willing to kill me over a stupid stolen car. That was the moment. That was the you're not in Kansas anymore, Toto, moment for me. Mm. You are in the real world. And city policing is different. You better be prepared to take any action to save your own life or the life of your partner. You better be ready every single time that you make that stop. And you better be prepared to be a warrior. Completely different from my police experience in Princeton.
But do you think that is small town, getting back to the East Coast versus West Coast, do you think that is more of a large city here in Vegas versus a small town in, wherever? It's not
I'm
necessarily...
going to say kind of,
Okay.
but even when I told that story to cops in more urban agencies in New Jersey, it was yeah, man, you're in the real world now.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, so it was, and it was fascinating for me. I mean, I'm learning. If you don't learn throughout your entire police career,
Yeah.
then there's something wrong with you, because you can learn something every single day as long as you're open to it.
Before you tell the story about the active shooter, I want you to, I just found this very interesting. I never, I've interviewed another Las Vegas guy, and it didn't put two and two together, and I didn't understand it. Tell me what the Metropolitan portion of it means. There's a specific thing. I was listening to one of your interviews, and you're like, oh, well, there's deputies and your police officers, and I'm like, what? So explain that to me.
Right. So I came from Princeton Borough Police Department.
Right.
Princeton Borough Police Department had 30 cops. We were within the township of Princeton Police Department, and we were divided into two different police departments: Princeton Township, Princeton Borough. Completely different mayor, completely different police department, completely different chief. And then within Mercer County, there were 25 other police agencies, right? We were all on different radio frequencies. We were all, none of us talked to each other. I get to Vegas, and I'm studying the history of Vegas. And the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department was way ahead of its time. In 1972, the City of Las Vegas Police Department merged with the Clark County Sheriff's Department. Now, there's still a City of Las Vegas with a mayor, and there's still a Clark County with a county commission, but they decided they were going to combine their resources to form the Metropolitan Police. And as a result, everyone that's a Metropolitan Police officer is also a deputy sheriff.
It's just fascinating.
It is. It really is. I found it fascinating too.
Yeah.
So we have countywide jurisdiction, which means as a metropolitan cop, I can go into Henderson because I'm a deputy. I can go into North Las Vegas because I'm a deputy. I have jurisdiction everywhere, even though you don't normally do that.
Yeah.
But we can. So if you look at it, combining resources is something that more police departments ought to do.
Sure.
It gives better coverage, you have better resources, you have better training, but there's 18,000 different police agencies in the United States of America.
Right.
Some of them have a chief and nobody else.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to give up their power.
That's exactly right. That's what I was going to say, because that's the issue, right? Nobody wants to, if you're the chief of police, you don't want to give up your power to the sheriff and vice versa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the people, who suffers here?
Yeah.
The people suffer.
Yeah.
But yet most towns don't want to give up their police departments either, because they have relationships.
Right.
It's really an interesting it's an interesting study in law enforcement.
You're a cop for 10 years in Princeton. You come here, you go through this FTO program. Before I forget, did you have to go through another academy?
Sure did.
Okay. How was the difference between that academy and the New Jersey?
I actually found it tougher to be here and go through the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Academy because it was not a residential academy.
Okay.
So you had to live. Now remember, this was a tough transition for me.
Sure.
I came here, I didn't know one person. I had no support system. I have to rent an apartment. I have to live a life outside, and I have to go to this academy from 7 in the morning till 5 at night, study at night. I mean, it was tough. It was really, really difficult. It was lonely.
Plus, you're probably one of the older guys now,
I'm
right?
one of the older guys, and I've already burned my bridges, right? And I'll tell you the story about that because that is a funny freaking story of my final bridge burning at the Princeton Police Department.
Okay.
I've never told this story in public, by the way.
Okay. Perfect.
So I'm going to tell you the story. You're going to laugh. So, but I am so incentivized to succeed here.
Sure.
And I wind up having at the end of this experience in this academy here, I had the highest grade point average and was chosen as the class speaker to represent my class. But I had already pissed off the people here too. Here's what happens. My first day in the police academy. First day in the police academy. Oh, wait a minute. I have to tell this story first because it makes sense. So I came here and took the test, right?
Yeah.
Here they have a polygraph as part of their testing process, right? So I pass everything, and at the end they give you a polygraph test. Well, one of the questions on the polygraph test was, is there anything in your past that you don't want us to know about you? And now remember, I've given I'm not a polygraph operator, but I've used the polygraph as a detective. I'm familiar with its limitations and with its abilities. And they asked me this question: is there anything in your past that you don't want us to know about you? And the polygraph examiner asked me that, and I said, yeah, of course there is. I don't want you to know everything about me. Well, what? I said, hey, listen, I don't want you to know the one time I climbed a tree and I peeked in my neighbor's yard, okay? What else? I said, I don't know. It's just, there's things I wouldn't want you to know about me. They failed me. They disqualified me on that question. Well, I didn't come all the way out here to take this test and be fucked with like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I go to the head of personnel. And I make an appointment. I go into his office. And remember, this is 1986. This is a cowboy town. And I walk into his office, and he's got cowboy boots up on his desk, and he's reading the newspaper. And I walk in, I sit down, and he just moves the paper down. Yeah, what do you want? And I said, I failed the polygraph test on a bullshit question. Now he puts the paper down. What are you talking about? I said, look, I've used the polygraph. I'm aware of it. You asked me a question that was invalid. You asked me, the question was, is there anything in your past that you don't want us to know about you? I said, that is a bullshit question. And he goes, well, you are a cop in New Jersey. I went, yeah. You're a cop in New Jersey. I go, yeah. New Jersey. And I went, oh. So wait a minute. You're thinking, because I'm a cop in New Jersey, that I'm corrupt. And he goes, yeah. And I said, then why didn't you ask me those questions? He says, are you willing to take a polygraph on corruption? I said, hell yeah. They gave me a whole new polygraph. Did you ever take money for not doing your job? Do you ever take sex for not doing your job? Do you ever plant evidence? Did you ever do this? Did you ever do that? And I passed it, and that's how I got hired. So, which was really funny, because when I told the cops in New Jersey I was leaving to come to Vegas, it was, oh my God, Randy, the mob's all over that town. So here I am, leaving New Jersey, and they're, oh my God, Randy, what are you doing? First, you're halfway to retirement. Are you out of your mind? In fact, the guy who I told you mentored me and gave me that amazing advice about compassion, he became the chief of police. And he said, Randy, don't leave. He says, if you stay, He was the captain at that time. I'm going to be the next chief of police. And he was. You will be the next chief after me. And I said, he said, you're halfway to retirement. Are you out of your mind? And all of my compatriots said that.
Yeah.
You're gonna chuck all this, and I took a $10,000 pay cut to come here besides. And I said, I got to go. So now so finally I get hired because of that polygraph thing.
Yeah.
First day of the police academy. Strict military once again.
Okay.
Sir, yes, sir.
But by this time you're 30 or whatever, and you don't. It's like whatever.
Well, no, not at all. Just the opposite. Because I know I got to play this game. Because if I get kicked out, I'm done.
Well, but that's interesting. I would think, but in my mind, at 30, you've already done it. You know the game, so it's like, okay.
I do, but I also know their power.
Okay.
They can wash you out at any time.
Okay.
So it's the first day of the academy. And the academy staff, TAC officers they were called, the lieutenant come to, and everybody, you're all scared to death because they know, their power, right? The lieutenant comes by and I'm at my desk, and I think we had about 50, 60 people in the class. And he's going down the desk and he's eye-fucking everybody, And he stops right in front of my desk. And he says, Sutton! I stood at attention. Sir, yes, sir! So you're a cop in Jersey, huh? Sir, yes, sir! Well, you're a fucking thief then. And I got so pissed off. I'm very good. I hold my temper really well. I saw fucking rage. And I said, sir, no, sir. He said, yeah, you're a Jersey cop. You're all fucking crooks. I wanted to punch him in his face so bad. And that began a war between he and I that lasted 4 years.
Really? Not even just the academy?
Nope.
Wow.
Nope. And he did everything he could to wash me out. Now, I excelled in the academy. I was so motivated because I knew I had nothing to go back to. So I studied my ass off. I was first in my class in academics. I was chosen as the class leader. I was on it. He did not want me to be the valedictorian. So 2 days before graduation, they had demerit system, if they found your gun dirty or shit. Well, if you had so many demerits, they would lower your score. So he gave me so many demerits that I was no longer the valedictorian.
Wow.
Well, you think I forgot that? Not a chance. So then my career begins and
Okay, wait a minute. Before you go on.
Okay.
How'd you burn your bridge?
Oh. This is great. So, it's my last week before I'm leaving the Princeton Police Department. I've announced it. The guys decided to throw a retirement party, going away party for me. And back there, the hub of social activity is the local firehouse. And cops show up from all over the state to say goodbye to me. And, there's a couple hundred guys there, and we're drinking and laughing and telling stories. And then when it was winding down, the final hardcore group of us decided to go to a strip club. Never a good idea. So about 40 of us go to this strip club that's 4 towns away. And now I had my partner at the time, I'm a detective. My partner at the time is a Richard Gere lookalike, right? This guy gets laid more than any human being I ever met. And, Yeah, he's one of the funniest guys I know. But he's also, when he drinks, he has a separate personality. Not a bad personality, but he adopts. Let me put it this way. That's the best way to talk about this. He loved old movies. And when he drank, he adopted the persona of people in old movies. I don't know why. So anyway, we're all in this at the strip club. And it's not like the Vegas strip clubs, which are pretty high-end stuff, you know. This is like, they had 3 girls, they had, you know, 1 runway. We're talking bare bones strip club. And like I said, it was 4 towns away from where I was a cop. So we're all in there and we're drinking, having a good time. And I catch some movement in the corner of my eye and I look over and there's my partner disrobing, taking all his clothes off. And I go, John, what are you doing? And he looked at me and he goes, Randy, this is for you. And before anybody could stop him, he leaped over the bar and jumped onto the runway behind a dancer who didn't know he was there. And he's completely naked. And she's doing her dance thing, and he's right behind her, mimicking her. The freaking crowd goes insane, as you might well imagine. The bouncers lose their mind. The dancer screams, and they come running after him, and he leaps off he leaps off into the crowd, where we start spiriting him away, and now there is a confrontation between the bouncers who want his ass and the cops who ain't giving him up. Meanwhile, I grab him, I grab his clothes, get him into my car, and we haul ass out of there. And I get him home. And we're laughing our asses off. Because that's some pretty funny shit.
Yeah.
Well, get back. So I'm still working. I'm still employed at the Princeton Police Department at this moment. I've got a week to go. We come into work the next day. And we're detectives. There is no Internal Affairs Bureau. We're the ones that do investigation. And the sergeant was there that night. The sergeant gets called in by the chief because there is a complaint that a Princeton police officer disrobed at a strip club. And the chief assigns my sergeant to be the investigator. And I'm sorry, I'm wrong on this. The sergeant was not there that night. He had left already.
Okay.
He was there at the beginning of it.
Okay.
He wasn't at the strip club. So he gets assigned to be the investigator. And he was going to take a detective with him. So he chooses my partner to be the other investigating officer. So John is now like, oh my God, I'm done. Because the chief is a severe moralist. Whereas this might be funny, like, if this happened here, there'd probably be a suspension involved.
Yeah.
There, you're done. So the chief is pissed that one of his cops is being named in this horrible incident that brings discredit upon the police department. And my sergeant and John are the investigating detectives. So they have to go interview the dancer. John tells me a story later. I'm urinating on myself. I'm laughing so hard. So he gets, they go to take witness statements, right? They're taking witness statements from the bouncers and stuff like that. They're telling the whole story, but they don't know who it was.
Right.
So John is just he's already resigned to the fact that he's done. So now he's going to interview the witness, the dancer who he was dancing behind. And when they're talking to her, she goes, "I don't remember what he looked like." She said, "All I remember was he had a really little dick." I never laughed so hard in my entire life. And John said he wanted to say, hey, it was cold in there. So they come back and they report to the chief. Nobody can identify who this was, right?
Yeah.
But he's not having it. He's on the warpath. So the day before, it was my last day now, I said, I got an idea. Tell him it was me. What's he going to do?
Right.
That was how I burned my bridge.
Okay. All right. Let's. We're going to get a little serious here after that. Tell me about this active shooter, because this was probably a seminal moment in your life.
So every cop I know has life-changing moments, and I've had a number of them. And those moments have been pivotal in my development and who I am now. One of those moments was not long into my Las Vegas police career. And it was November 18th, 1989. Now, I'm now a field training officer. And it's a Saturday night, about 9 o'clock, and I am having dinner with my old partner. My trainee was off sick. He's got his trainee with him. We're having dinner. And as we're walking out in the parking lot to clear and go back on duty, go back on patrol, the tone alert goes off for an active crime in progress. And it turns out to be what we now know as an active shooter. And the report is, there's a guy dressed all in black. He's armed with a handgun. He's got a shoulder holster. He's got ammunition. He's got a sword. And he's shooting at kids at a high school dance. And it's literally 2 blocks from where we are. It's my patrol area.
Mm.
At first, we look at each other and like, get the hell out of here. But within seconds, we realize this is the real deal, because there's 2 couples on a double date and they're following them. And they're on their phone with 911. Okay, he's shooting at the kids again. They're diving for cover. And now I know this is the real deal. So my old partner says, I'll ride in with you too. So I get down there and I'm literally, 40 seconds away. And as I pull onto the street, there's another patrol unit getting there with 2 cops in it, a field training officer and his trainee. And they have the suspect lit up with their spotlights and their headlights. He's in the middle of the street and he's walking right towards them. He's got the gun in his hand. I see this as I am driving, right up on him. So I'm expecting to see in the next couple of seconds that A, they're going to shoot him, B, he's going to surrender, C, he's going to run, D, he's going to shoot him. And I'm playing these scenarios in my brain, preparing for what's going to happen as I arrive. But he does something nobody expects. He nonchalantly puts the gun back in his shoulder holster and just walks right towards the cops that are standing there with their guns out, screaming, get on the ground, and gives them a little nod and walks right by them. And they're like, shit, what do we do now? I've now jumped out of my police car. I see this. And he starts walking, he makes a left-hand turn, he starts walking up an apartment driveway where there's a whole bunch of people that he's walking towards. Now our air unit has now gotten there, our helicopter. They got their 80 million candle power light on him. And he's just walking right towards this group of people. Well, this is the moment that I have trained for my entire police career. This is a deadly force situation. Now, am I justified in shooting this guy right now?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is legally, yes, of course I am. We don't know if he's even hit anybody because we don't have anybody at the school yet. But a deadly force decision isn't just a professional decision. It's a personal decision because you're going to live with the consequences of this for the rest of your life. And I don't want to shoot him in the back with his gun in the shoulder holster. So I decide I'm going to take him physically. And I run up behind him. I've got my gun in my hand. Run up behind him. He hears me. He turns. When he turns, I kick him in the stomach. And when I kick him, he goes down like this. And then he comes up with the gun. And he and I are as close as the camera and I are. Our gun muzzles were almost touching. And we both fired at exactly the same time. And I fired 2 shots. And then the nightmare that every cop has actually happened. My gun jammed. And my gun's now going click, 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 but his going boom, boom, boom. And I remember the muzzle flashes. They look like flamethrowers. Mm. And I got nowhere to go. There's no cover. My old partner, the air unit sees his muzzle flash and radios, shots fired, officer down, because I roll onto my back and I'm going from side to side trying to get my gun to work while he's trying to shoot me. And little pieces of asphalt are hitting me in the head. And I remember thinking, is that the one? Is that the one? What's it going to feel like to die? Oh, I wasn't wearing my body armor.
You didn't even have a vest on.
Nope. Wow. The air unit says, shots fired, officer down. Remember those 2 cops that were there before me? Mm-hmm. They figure now's a good time to open up on this guy, but their bullets are zinging over my head too. And I don't know who to be more afraid of, him or them. He's shooting at me. Their bullets are zinging over my head. The air unit, the rotor wash, is throwing up sticks and stones, and that's all hitting me. It is a surreal moment. My old partner drives in, sees this action, and decides, I'm just going to run this guy over. But what happens in critical incidents is we get physiological reactions. We get distorted hearing. We get distorted vision. We get tunnel vision. So he didn't see that there was a big cement pylon in the way. And so when he gunned his car, he smashed into that thing at about 30 miles an hour, and it sounded like a bomb went off. Mm. So it didn't have the intended consequence of what he wanted, which was to run this guy over. But what it did do is it took his attention away from me. Long enough for me to get up. I now got my gun working, and now he and I are in a toe-to-toe, Wyatt Earp, no bullshit gunfight. Excuse me. And we're just banging it out, man. We're just banging it out.
From feet away.
From feet away. And I'm thinking, I remember a conscious thought, what's it going to feel like when that bullet enters me? It's funny what the things you think about during these moments. And I also remember thinking this is no bullshit. I remember thinking, I suck. I'm the world's worst shot. I remember thinking that because I'm shooting at this guy. How am I missing him? My gun runs dry. I do a combat reload and he runs. And as he runs, I chase after him. My old partner chases after him. And now we're in a running gun battle. And he goes around the corner of a building, and when I come around the corner, he's behind a bush. And we just emptied our mags and ended the gunfight.
Mm.
As I came around that corner, I hear him scream, "Die, motherfucker, die." I remember thinking, how crazy is this guy? And that's where the gunfight ended. My first 2 shots hit him dead in the chest.
And he got shot like how many times?
43 times.
43
Well,
times.
no, he had 43 injuries.
Okay.
Some of them were through and throughs. A lot of them were through and throughs.
Okay. And he was still
But
functioning.
he was dead and didn't know it.
He was what, high on meth?
He wasn't high on meth.
Well,
He was a meth addict and had done so much meth that he went into a psychosis and told his girlfriend that God had appointed him the ultimate ninja warrior. And so he stole his brother's gun, put on his karate gi. He was of Japanese descent and went off to do battle.
Before I ask you this question, there was in relation to this, Coroner Inquest, where the mom says, "Why'd you kill my son?"
The worst part of this whole thing was, at that time, before you could go back to work, you had to be cleared of the shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And the mechanism at that time was the coroner's inquest. So it was a jury would make a determination whether you were permitted to use force like you did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's open to the public, and the public could ask questions. And so after all the testimony, then it becomes, and they have to pass the question to the judge, and the judge makes a determination whether you can answer it or not. And I'm looking at his mother the whole time that I'm on the stand. Nice little old lady. And she sends a question up to the judge. And the judge says, the question is from the individual's mother. The question is, why did you kill my son? It was the worst, most horrible. Here I am looking at her. What am I going to tell his mom?
Yeah.
She loved her son.
Yeah.
She didn't know him as the context of that night.
Mm-hmm.
And she's asking a question that every mother would. And I said, "Ma'am, I had no choice." And that's the moment that I stole that with.
Okay, Randy, I normally ask this at the end, but I want to ask you this. So I'm going back to Johnny having the heart attack. I'm going back to the robbery where the guy puts a gun in your face. You've already had a shooting here. You've had this shooting. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you've never been married, right?
Correct.
Okay, so what's your support system? How are you getting through these traumatic experiences? And is Las Vegas, are they better at it than Princeton was? Do you get in a shooting, are they sending you, hey, you got to go talk to a psychiatrist, therapist, whatever?
Well, you can't come back to work until you talk to a shrink.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean shit.
It's just the, hey, yeah, I'm okay type of thing, right?
Right.
Okay, so how are you...
You're never going to tell the shrink what you really think.
Okay, so how are you dealing with it? You don't have the traditional, like, hey, I go home, I got these kids, I got my wife, and, some people like to talk to their wife, some people don't about that situation,
right.
So that's hit or miss anyway. But where's your support system during all this?
Well, I was still very close to my parents.
Okay.
But I didn't burden them with this. Well, I didn't really have a support system.
How do you get through it then? I mean, some people have working out, some people have family, some people have church, some people drink.
You suck it up, Buttercup. That was the school of learning that I came from.
Okay. So this is a question that I posed to my friend the other day who's been in some shootings and is totally fine, right? And you strike me as fine. Now, whether, we just met and everything else. Why do you think some people can deal with traumatic situations and others PTSD, hey, I'm going to eat my gun, the whole thing?
Exactly.
What do you think that is?
In the ensuing years, and in my capacity now as the founder of the Wounded Blue,
okay,
I literally deal with these situations every single day. I talk to cops more now than I ever did. I see the remnants of critical incidents. I've seen my friends kill themselves. I've gotten cops into treatment for years now who are dealing with post-traumatic stress. And the answer to that question, there's no single answer for it. Everyone deals with their trauma differently. And yet, while there's some of the same traits, everyone's normal. Most cops will never use their gun in the line of duty. It's like 95% will never use their weapon.
Right.
And most cops, even if they do use their weapon, they never hit the guy. And yet, there's a huge percentage of officers who, once they're involved in a shooting, will leave the job because the reality is now come to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
How you come to terms with what happened is literally on an individual basis. There are those that won't ever think about it again, and that's their normal. There are the others who will dwell on it, and it will severely affect their lives. There's no consistency. So now we have to determine, how do we deal with those cops who are severely affected by this trauma? Taking a human life is not what we're supposed to do. Right? This goes against our moral. If you're a normal human being, taking the life of another human being is not your normal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And most cops have no idea how they're going to react to it. Most cops don't even know how they're going to react to it when it happens. And that's a whole nother topic here. I call it facing the dragon. I trained my entire police career for that one moment, as cops do. And yet one of the other officers who was involved in that night, my old partner's trainee, she jumped out of the car, shot her police car, and then dropped her gun and started crying. She couldn't deal with it. And that was her last night as a cop. But you can go through your entire police career and never know what it's going to be like when you are the one that has to make that life and death decision.
Right.
And that's why we train and we train and we train, and we hope that when that moment comes, you're going to revert to your training and you are going to take the actions that are needed to save your own life or the life of another human being. Now, what's the fallout of that? And it runs the entire gamut of the human condition.
Let's talk about this before we get to the end of your career now that we're on this subject. Tell me about the woundedblue.org. Why did you found it? And, well, I know maybe this has to do with the end of your career, but I want to get at, just tell me about the woundedblue.org. What do you guys do?
The Wounded Blue is the national assistance and support organization for injured and disabled law enforcement officers, whether those injuries are physical or emotional and psychological. We've helped more than 17,000 police officers since we created this organization 7 years ago. We are basically a peer support organization. I have a team of trained police officers. Everybody on the team has been either shot or stabbed or beaten or run over. Everybody's been screwed up. Everybody's been screwed over. I've got people that have been in wheelchairs, people that have been blinded, and yet they continue to serve. They continue, and they're the heroes of the Wounded Blue.
Yeah.
They're the men and women who know that what they have experienced can help others that are walking that path. Our motto is never forgotten, never alone. Because when you are severely injured in the line of duty, or you're facing post-traumatic stress to the point where it debilitates you, you think no one else has ever experienced anything like this. So knowing that other people have, and have negotiated past this, have lived a life afterwards, is essential. And that's why peer support is so important. Peer support has saved lives. We've saved lives, we've saved careers, we've saved marriages, because the men and women of the peer support advocate team care. And sometimes all you need to know is that somebody else has walked that path. And having somebody to talk to.
Besides the peer support, do you do other stuff?
We surely do.
Okay.
So besides providing peer support, we help. Sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes people need psychological help to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And we can refer people to culturally competent psychologists. You notice I say culturally competent because just because a guy who's got a psychologist degree doesn't mean he knows shit about policing.
Right.
One of the things I've heard over and over again is from cops who were so desperate they sought help, and the psychologists they talked to couldn't handle the trauma of what they were saying.
Right. Right.
So culturally competent is really important. We help people get into substance abuse clinics, inpatient treatment, because unfortunately addiction plays a major role in the end of police careers and dealing with post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
Now, I don't call it PTSD. I call it post-traumatic stress injury, because it is an injury and it can be cured, it can be healed. It doesn't have to be a disorder. You put that word disorder on the back of PTS and it's like the self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh shit, I got a disorder. No, you don't. You're human. You're dealing with a situation that most people can't even conceive of dealing with. And that's if it's one incident like a shooting. Most post-traumatic stress isn't from one situation, it's from accumulation of unbelievable events of things they have seen and done and had to experience. So besides that, we have played a major role in healing cops. Now, what do I mean by that? Let me give you an example.
Okay.
Fate or destiny or God or whatever, Zeus, whatever it is that you believe in, has played a major role in every aspect of my life, including the Wounded Blue. And about one of the other things that I do, besides writing books and being in movies and shit like that, is I'm a commentator on the news about law enforcement topics. Fox News, One America News, CBS. I've done hundreds of these interviews about policing. So one day, and the way I don't get paid for it, my deal with Fox News is that they introduce me as retired police lieutenant and founder of the Wounded Blue. And then if there's an opportunity to talk about the Wounded Blue, they give it to me. Because getting people to know that we even exist is a challenge.
Sure.
So I happen to be doing a show, this is about 5 years ago now, Christmas time. I'm doing a show about police officers being shot. So I got to talk all about the Wounded Blue. And about 20 minutes later, I get a phone call. Hey, Randy, I saw you on the news. I want to know more about your organization because I support law enforcement. And this is during the height of the George Floyd insanity, where everybody's, you know, oh, the cops, oh my God.
Yeah.
And that became almost a 2-hour conversation. And it was very clear to me this guy knew the charity space well. And so at the end of this conversation where I'm telling him about the Wounded Blue, who we are, what we do, who I am, et cetera, he says, send me your 990s. 990s are the tax forms that every charity has to publicly show, which shows how you spend your money. Well, when he looked at him, he saw we spend our money, saw that I don't pay myself. I live on my pension. He called me back and he said, I'm going to make it a Merry Christmas for you. Watch your mailbox. 3 days later, there's a check for $100,000.
Wow.
The biggest donation we've ever had. And I used that, amongst other things, to literally fly to the bedsides of cops who have been severely injured and give their families a couple $1,000 for babysitting or hotels or whatever needed to be. And boy, that money went quick.
Do you want to give that guy a shout out, or does he want to remain anonymous?
I don't know who he is.
Are you serious?
I'm gonna tell you the rest of the story.
Okay.
You think that part's weird? Wait till you hear the rest of the story. So I give away all this money, use it for the charity, and I don't hear from him again. A year goes by, and almost to the day, I get a phone call. It's Christmas time. Again, the year later. I get a phone call from the Fraternal Order of Police president in Utah. Hey, Randy, we got a situation up here. We got a police officer who lost his leg in the line of duty and was thrown away by his department. He needs a new prosthetic leg and they won't give it to him. And he's walking around on a bloody stump. So we're going to put a fundraiser together. Can you help us? And I told him, I said, look, man, we're a bare bones charity, man. Every penny that I get in goes to help. We don't have that kind of money to. I said, how much is it? He says, we think it's $25,000. I said, okay, let me make some calls and see what I can do. Once again, hand of God or Zeus or whoever, Aphrodite. I get a phone call 2 hours later from the voice. That's what I call him, the voice on the phone.
Just out of the blue.
And he says, I was thinking about you, Randy. What's going on? And I said, listen, I can't believe that you just called me because I just got this. And I told him about it. And he said, Randy, no brainer. I'll pay for it. So Christmas Eve, I call this guy up in Utah, the cop. And his wife's in on it, so she's videotaping him. And I say, the Wounded Blue, you have more friends than you think you know. And because of the respect that cops have for you, we are going to pay for your new prosthetic leg. It was the best Christmas gift I could give to myself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, story gets better.
Oh, it gets better.
I know. So I call his wife and I say, hey, there's a big prosthetic manufacturer. He lives in Salt Lake City. Big prosthetic manufacturer up there. Go ahead and get it done. And I'm feeling pretty good about myself, We got this shit done. Well, about a week goes by and she calls me and she's a little sheepish. It's a little more money than we thought. I was okay. How much? Well, it's $117,000.
Oh.
Oh my God. Is it $117,000? She goes. I said, okay, I'll get back to you. Now I don't even know what to do, right? This is a really. So I called the voice. I know I had to contact him. I just don't know who he is. And I said, here's what's going on. It's $117,000. I said, I don't even know how to even bring it up to you. And he said, well, first of all, Randy, the Wounded Blue said we're doing it, so we're doing it. Secondly, that man deserves the best prosthetic leg he can get. So we bought him a brand new prosthetic leg for $117,000. It changed his life. But it gets better. I know. I know. So I don't know the whole story. I just know that this guy was screwed over by his department, which unfortunately I see more frequently you can imagine. But I don't know the whole story. So I go up to meet him. And I bring my filmmaker with him because I want to document all this stuff, right? So we go to meet him and his family. And they live in a house that is outside of Salt Lake, but it's pretty rough. It's in disrepair. And now I find out the whole story. This guy was a cop in Texas. Always wanted to be a policeman. Finally gets hired by a mid-sized agency in Texas. And he loves it. One day he's directing traffic in an intersection. And a guy high on cocaine is driving a tractor trailer towards him. And he's so high that he hits a car, kills that driver, and then the tractor trailer falls over on Mike, the cop, and drags him 100 yards down the road, trapping him for hours until they can get him out. Devastating injuries, traumatic brain injury, crushed his sternum, filleted his arm open, and they had to take his leg off above his knee. He's in a coma for 3 months. Wakes up, he's got a wife, he's got a little baby. Wakes up 3 months later. The chief is there, the governor is there. They drape him with a beautiful medal. And then they said, "You're fired." The governor and the chief leave. He gets a notice. "You're being terminated. You can't return to work full duty. You're fired." No benefits, no pension, no nothing. So he hires a lawyer. The lawyer looks at his case. He says, Texas is a right-to-work state. They can do it. The only place you're going to get any money is if we sue the tractor trailer company, so they do. Problem is, they've only got $1.5 million in insurance. And they killed the first driver, so his family got $1.1 million, left about $400,000 for Mike. Think the story can't get worse? Workers' comp comes in and says, "Wait a minute. We paid $250,000 to fix you. Give it back." They took it before he could even get it. Think it can't get worse? Left him with about 100 G's. His wife divorced him and left him and took the money, leaving him penniless. He goes to live with his mom and dad up in Salt Lake City to rebuild his life. That's where he meets his new wife. They get married, they fall in love. Or they fall in love and they get married. And he is rebuilding his life. He's working as a security officer because he can't be a cop again. And that's where we meet him. That's where our lives intersect when he's at that point. Now, I go up to meet him, and now they tell me the whole story, right? And I'm like, I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off that this department would do this to him. I'm not surprised because I've seen it. But I'm pissed off. While I'm up there, I find out they've adopted 2 special needs children. There's so much love in this house. You can feel it. You see it. No matter what he's been through and what that husband and wife have been through, they decide to adopt 2 special needs children. And I got to tell you, it's emotional. You know, it's emotional. So I'm in my hotel room that night, and I'm just digesting all of this when I get a phone call. The voice. how's it going up there, Randy? And I fill him in. I said, listen, here's the story. I didn't know the whole story. I filled him in the whole thing. And I said, and they have 2 special needs kids. And he says, Randy, we're doing more. We teamed up with the Gary Sinise Foundation and we completely rebuilt their home from the ground up. We changed their life. The voice on the phone.
And you still don't know who it is?
Nope. It's now been 5 years. He's donated more than $2 million to me. We have fixed cops. We just fixed a police officer who was told he would never walk again. Through the voice I found with one of the finest spinal surgeons in the United States. We sent this officer to them, who had been screwed over by his department as bad as Mike was. He danced with his daughter at her wedding. It cost us $350,000. We fixed him, and his life is back. And we've done it time after time after time, and I still don't know who this guy is. He is the voice on the phone.
Wow. Wow.
And all he wants me to tell them, America cares about you.
And he contacted you when it was probably the worst time ever. Wow.
I feel like he's my brother. I feel like I know him better than I know my whole family.
Yeah.
And I've never met him.
Okay, well, we are going on one of my longest interviews, and this has been worth every frickin' minute. So let's talk about how you got to the Wounded Blue, because ultimately you got screwed over by Las Vegas Metro. So what happened?
You know, once again, my life trajectory seemed chosen for me.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I have found in the years now is that sometimes we think the worst things that could possibly happen to us wind up to become the most incredible life-changing experience. So I love being a cop. You can probably hear it in my voice, right?
Yeah, yeah.
This is by the stories I tell.
Mm-hmm.
Not that there weren't rough times. There was plenty of darkness in my police career. Plenty of darkness. Maybe one of the worst was how my police career ended. And the story is this. So I spent almost my entire police career as a street cop. I was a sergeant for 14 years. The only reason I promoted to lieutenant was for selfish reasons. Because I knew the pension would be a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
But you're different. You're no longer one of the guys when you're a lieutenant.
Sure.
But I spent my entire lieutenant's career on graveyard shift. Because that's where the action is. And the lieutenant's job is the last rank you can actually go out and be a cop. So I was a street lieutenant. And one night, I was watch commander. Watch commander means that you're the highest ranking officer on duty. And when I was watch commander, I would take a patrol officer with me, because if you want to know what's going on in your squad or your shift, you just ride in a police car with a cop for 10 hours, you're going to know everything. So every time I was watch commander, I would take a different cop with me, because I supervised, over 100 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this particular night, this kid had never ridden with me before. We're on Las Vegas Boulevard. It's 2:30 in the morning. Driving down, and I'm talking to him like I'm talking to you, and suddenly I found my brain slowing down. I started talking slower. And I literally felt my brain slowing down. I knew I was having a stroke. stopped the car right in the middle of Las Vegas Boulevard in front of Bally's Hotel, and I said, "Get me medical, I'm having a stroke." And this kid's looking at me like, you know, is he fucking with me, right? He realized this is a real deal, and I radioed for help. I got out of the car to go around to the passenger side in case he needed to get me to the hospital, and I started speaking gibberish. And I knew I was speaking gibberish, but I couldn't control it. And then I lost the ability to speak and move altogether, and I crumpled to the pavement, helpless. Fully aware of everything that's going on, but unable to move, unable to talk, unable to communicate. And I was not afraid to die. I was praying to die. I was afraid to live like that. Got to the hospital. Once again, that same angel that's been on my shoulder my entire career was with me again. And the clot went through my brain, did its damage, but certainly could have been a whole lot more. And I'm in the hospital. I should say this, significant. 3 weeks before this happened, my mother died in my arms. 2 months before that, I was in another fatal shooting. So there was a lot going on in my brain, right?
Do you think those two things contributed to that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Not a shadow of a doubt. So I'm in the hospital about a week. Doctor comes in. He said, "How you feeling?" I said, "Quite honestly, I'm feeling pretty good. I fully believe in my brain, I'm going back to work. Right? And I'm getting out of this joint. I'm getting back in that uniform, and I'm going back to work. Says, I'm not done being a cop." And he sits on bedside and he says, "I'm glad you feel better, Randy. But I don't want you to be under the mistaken impression that anything we did here is going to change the fact that you have a severe heart disease and you need to prepare yourself for your own mortality." And I got to tell you, that's not what I expected to hear. And I just sat back and I went, let me process what I was just told. I'm never going to be a cop again. In fact, he just gave me a death sentence. Now, my mother died in my arms 3 weeks before from the same disease that I had. That's what killed my father too. So this is not an esoteric idea. This is a big dose of reality hit me right in the face. And what happened next is the most devastating part of this. And that's my own department turned its back on me and said, "We're not paying your medical bills and we're not giving you your benefits." And I said, wait a minute. You can't do that. It's the law. Yeah, well, make us. I had to get an attorney. I had to go to court. I had to fight him for over a year. I went to go see the sheriff, who I served with for 24 years. I was friendly with. And I said, "How do you treat me like this? I spent 24 years of my life serving this city. I almost gave my life on more than one occasion." He said, "Randy, this isn't personal, man. This is just business."
You ever spoken to that guy again?
Yeah.
I mean, are you on friendly terms with him again?
I don't have, let me put it this way. I know who he is.
Okay, because it's like, you know.
See, here's the harsh reality, and your viewers are going to have a hard time with this, accepting this, as I did. He was telling me the truth. It wasn't personal. It was a business decision. You see, I was no longer an asset to the Metropolitan Police Department. I'm now a financial liability.
I get it. I understand what you just said, but you're telling me it happened to you. It's happened to all these other guys that you're dealing with the Wounded Blue. How is that a financial decision? Because
I'll tell you how.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so now they know that it's going to take about a year and a half for me to go through the court process to fight them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's an administrative law court. I had to get an attorney. They lost every single hearing over this year and some period. And yet they continue to spend tens of thousands of dollars of taxpayers' money to fight me. And I'm trying to think, why? What did I do to these people, right? And here is the worst part of this reality. They knew they were going to lose. They also knew it would take about a year and a half, and they were hoping I would die in the meantime, so they wouldn't have to pay.
Do you think that's the rationale and all these other guys that you're talking
Yep.
about?
All related to money.
But what I'm saying is, you think that they hope all these guys, they get injured on the job and we're like, we're going to stall this out as long as we can. This guy's going to die. We're hoping he dies.
No, they're not going to hope that. They're going to hope that you're going to give up and not fight him anymore. Because that's what happens. They wear you down, and they wear you down, and they wear you down to the point where you give up. Or in some cases die. That's a harsh reality, buddy.
Boy, you're not joking, man. I mean, you give 20, 25 years to a department and they just go, see ya.
So talk about being in a dark space.
Yeah.
Talk about being in a dark space. I felt abandoned. I felt alone. I felt betrayed. I'm not a cop anymore. My identity is gone. I don't have the ability to be of service any longer. My mother's dead. I've lost everything.
And are you still dealing with it? Suck it up, Buttercup? Or do you actually have you found somebody to talk with at this point?
Oh, I've got a great circle of support.
Got
A
it.
great circle of support.
Good.
Oh yeah. Oh, if it weren't for that, listen, I understand suicide.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
So eventually I won. And then, like I said, this was the darkest moment of my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then all the other things that I've done in my life, being the most featured officer on the show Cops, which played a huge role in my life,
Mm-hmm.
being in the movies, writing books, being a police trainer, all of those things now created what happened next. And that was messages coming in from cops from around the country. Facebook had become a thing. You can find everybody on Facebook.
Yeah.
And cops started reaching out to me. Randy, I know you don't know me, but I was shot in the line of duty, and my chief never even visited me in the hospital, and they've thrown me away. They're not paying my medical bills. Randy, I was hit by a drunk driver in my police car. I'm paralyzed. They've forgotten me. Randy, from all over the country. Not because I could do anything, but only because I was visible.
Right.
I'm a very visible guy in the law enforcement community because of everything I've done. So these cops are reaching out to me out of desperation because they don't know who to turn to. And I can't do anything for them. And that's when I realized that this is a national issue. And there was no national resource for these men and women, but there sure as hell is now. And we are the Wounded Blue, and we are the National Assistance and Support Organization for Injured and Disabled Officers, and we have helped more than 17,000 cops, and we have just begun.
Audience, I'm going to put all the contact information for the organizations and Randy in the description of this video. Boy, Randy, I really appreciate it. Thank you for this interview, but one last question for you. Looking back on your career, would you do anything different?
Not a goddamn thing.
Thank you, Randy. Really appreciate it.
You got it.